Hey everyone, in this video today we are going to be talking about how to create your loop yarn knitting project. And so these are all finger knit scarf. You will have received in your kit 3 skeins of your choice of colors. So skein being one ball of yarn essentially. Okay, I today for this video have 2 and I've taken one already out and I've wrapped it up. And then you'll also receive the information sheet. And then we'll talk at the end of this video also about how you would need to prepare your project for fair. So let's go ahead and get started on what you are going to want to do. So with your loop yarn, you're going to want to go ahead and take the wrapper off of your yarn. It is easier to work with this project once it's wound up together in a ball or collectively together. You do not want to just kind of pull from this. One thing that I do want to just highly suggest is that with this yarn, please do not pull anything, because you can pull these little loops here apart, and that is not what you want to have happen. If you would happen to make a mistake and you try to pull the whole entire piece apart to come apart, what's going to end up happening is you're going to break a loop and then it's going to ruin the project that you have. And so it is easiest to just kind of unwind it loop by loop. So let's go ahead and start talking about what we're going to be doing. Loop yarn is essentially a yarn that is designed already. It's kind of this thicker chenille type yarn, and it is already designed where on the strand you're going to have these multiple little loops that run along the project. Now, a couple years ago, we did a finger knit blanket, and this is a similar process. However, in this case, you already have the loops done for you. So all we're doing is looping a loop back into a loop that's already created. So they're all going to be uniform length. Really, the only thing left for you to really focus on is your tension and then making sure you're not dropping a loop. So we're going to talk about that. The very first thing you're going to do once everything is laid out and kind of wrapped up in your ball is you're going to determine how wide you want your scarf to be. So you could do a skinnier scarf and then it be shorter, or excuse me, longer. So you could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10. So you could go like 8 loops and that'd be about as wide as it would be, or you can go 10. One you could do, although I'm going to suggest you probably are going to run out of yarn, you could go a little wider and maybe go 12. So in this video, are just going to show you how to do one with, let's go 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So once you figure out the width of your scarf, okay, because I want one to just be a little longer, I'm going to lay out those loops. So again, you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So this would be considered your first row. The nice thing, like we said already, is that you already have past here, these are the next ones that you're using in the next row. So I would get just a little bit off of your ball of yarn there. And then what I'm going to do is take my 9th loop, which is this one here, and I'm going to kind of lay my yarn this way. All I'm going to do is take this, and I have to make this one the next one that goes up for the height. So I'm going to take it from behind. I'm going to take my 8th loop. So this is my 9th, this is my 8th, and I am just going to take and pull that loop through. Okay, so now I have essentially made a turn row by just pulling it through. So I'm going to kind of pull it up so you can kind of see. So this was my 8th loop right here. This is my 9th. And I'm just going to take it and pull that loop up and through. Okay, so now that's the start of my next row. After that, I'm going to take and loop up a new loop into each of my loops across. Okay, so watching very carefully, I'm going to zoom in here just a little so you guys can see. All right, so this is my next loop in there, and I'm going to thread it up and through. thread up and through. Now, here's the thing, you want to make sure your tension is good and you don't want to drop a loop. If you would happen to accidentally skip this one, and let's say I decided to do that next one, then on the back side you're going to have a loop that sticks out. So you want to make sure that as you're doing this, you are making sure you pick up every single loop. So I've done this one, this is my next one. I'm going to take my front one and put it over my back one. This is my next one, here's my next one. I'm going to take this and put it over my back one. And I'm going to continue on down the row. Now this first row is probably the most tricky because everything just kind of wants to run amok at first, and then after that it gets a little easier. I'm trying to make sure that my nothing is tangled. Leave it this way. All right, so now I have my first row done, and you can see that I have all of my 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Be careful with this first loop. You do not want to pull too hard to break that chain, and leave it in there. All right, so now we're going to start with the next one. Okay, so we have to go up and then over. So we want to take this loop. So I have mine. So remember, this is the next loop. This is the next one out. I'm going to take this one, kind of run it behind so you can move your yarn around. I'm going to take this one and thread it up through. And I'm going to do that all the way across again. So I'm going to make sure that I'm not missing a loop. And I am just going to thread up and through. Now, like I said, once you start doing this a little bit more, your yarn is going to not get as wrinkly and curled around. See, I almost missed this one because it was behind back here, so I almost went with this one, but make sure you're finding each of the next ones. If you would happen to accidentally drop a loop, like you're not doing the next one and you're skipping one, you're going to have to start all the way back from that beginning portion. So you're going to have to undo it. All right, so now I am at my last one here. Okay, now one thing you're going to notice is that this little first chain that goes up sometimes gets a little bit loose. So you can kind of tuck it around and adjust and kind of pull it down as needed. Okay, so now I have 2 full rows. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to do the same thing. Here was my last loop in. Here's my next one on the yarn. I'm going to take this one, thread my yarn back and around, and take this one, oops, excuse me, take this one up and through. And then I'm going to continue on. So this project, again, real simple because you're not having to make and figure out the size of your loops. If you were doing this with just thick yarn and having to make your own loop size, you'd have to really pay attention to how big those loops are as you're going through. This one, all the loops are the same size, pretty universal. So you're just going to be going back and forth, back and forth. This is a great project if you're going on a road trip. You can do something in the car. Be a great one for a rainy day. I will tell you that after a little while, you might want to stand up and take just a little break from it. All right, so now I'm done with my next row. I'm going to go ahead and continue on again. Now, let's say that I need to switch my yarn because I get to the end of it. Here's what I would do. Let me get to the end of my row. What my suggestion is to cut a piece of your yarn, and then with adult supervision, This type of yarn will actually kind of melt together, so you can melt together the next strand of yarn. All right, so let's say that we need to join together two pieces. Here's a simple knot that's going to tie everything together. Okay, I'm going to undo this one here so I have just a little bit more room. All right, so I'm going to take and kind of overlap them this way. I'm also going to zoom you in just a little. So, okay, I'm going to take this end and I'm going to create a knot and tie it. Oops, sorry. Tie it close to that end. And I'm going to take this other side, so the other less tail, and tie it on the back side of this. And then what that's going to do is create a little knot. So now I have two knots like this, and the easiest thing to do is then pull them together. And then what you can do is, I just like to tie and make sure those are all nice and tight. You can come in here, cut that. Get that in there. So you could tie them that way, and then if you wanted to take a little tiny piece of string and knot it here, like a piece of floss, you can take a little tiny piece of that floss, knot it together, and then essentially you just have a loop that has a big puff. And it's a little easier to hide. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and tie this little piece together. I found some floss in my closet. Not the best match. You could do white, would probably work fairly well. And kind of keep them together there. I apologize if this gets off screen just a smidge. Oops. So now I have them just tied really tightly. I'm going to double knot this. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to trim it. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and continue on. So that was the loop for that one. And this one comes up here. So now it just becomes a part of your design. And really, besides that little burn mark on there, you really can't tell. So then once we come back through, this is my next loop. And I come up this way. Oop. And continue on. It's going to be a little more challenging to find it. So I'm just kind of continuing in here and threading that next loop up and through. But again, you want to make sure every couple of rows or so, and don't pull it up so tight that it's coming through that way. But every couple of rows or so, make sure you're counting. All right, so there's that start to my loop yarn finger knit scarf. You can see that I got it started here. I'm gonna go a few more and then I will jump back on it and show you kind of the ending piece. All right, so as I was going, I got a little too quick for my hands and I missed a loop, so I was only going 7 across until I saw it over here. So remember what I said, that when you do this and you have to go back, I can't hide that. So it'll be showing pretty easily and the judge is going to catch it. So if you miss a loop, go ahead and just undo it carefully. Do not pull, because otherwise you will pull those loops out. And then I can just come back. Essentially, I missed one where I needed to come. There we go. I missed it on the other way. Okay, so let's pretend that I am going to be done with my rows. Okay, let's say that this is my last row that I have to do. Then here's what we are going to do instead, just for the essence of time. Okay, I'm going to come in here. Now let's say that I have one last row. Now let's pretend that I have like 5 loops left. Okay, so imagine the rest of this is gone. I only have this many loops, and that's not as wide as I need to be for my thing. So what I'm going to do is save my last loop, so this one here, and I'm going to go ahead and cut from there. And I actually might go a little bit. I would suggest going one more. I'm going to save 2 loops. Okay, so I'm going to come up this way. And so now I have an extra loop, and I'll show you what to do with that from later. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and instead, I'm going to take this loop and I'm going to go over my next loop. And I'm going to go over the next loop. Excuse me, I messed that up. I'm going to stick this loop into my next loop. There we go. Stick this loop into this loop. Same thing, stick this loop into this loop. This loop into this loop. This loop in here. And this loop in here. So now I have one loop that is essentially at the end. So you can save these other pieces. And what I would do with this one is I would go ahead and either tie it off. So if you have another little small piece of string, you can tie that off. You could cut it and go one loop on the outside, one on the inside, tie a knot, and then burn your loops in. So just an example. Take this loop here, take this one out. And then you can take and you can burn them. Remember, they are going to be hot, so use adult supervision with this. I'm just going to Grab an extra piece. So now that one's kind of burnt on, but the nice thing is it covers. So I'm gonna go ahead and just cover that. It's now a little harder to see that end. So you can see how I was sticking one little piece on there while it was a little hot yet, helped hide that. So I have that loop, but now you have this end over here, and you could leave that loop out, or you could do the same thing where you untuck this and then tie and wrap and then just weave it into your yarn. Really kind of up to you. I'm going to show you what I mean on that. Cut that string in between again. So I'm going to come in here and I might do a quick tied knot on the end of that one, and you can either do like we did on the other, cut it and burn it, or if you want to weave it in, it'd just be taking it and tucking it in as you go. The only thing with weaving it in is that you might be hard to pull through or get through, so you could use something like a crochet hook. Help do, and or at some point you're gonna have to hide this out. The only thing with weaving these in is sometimes those ends come undone, and an open end like that is gonna show and the judge is gonna see it, so you can either kind of help hide it by tying it and burning it off, or if you want to chance it, you can. So for the sake of this video, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it. So you can see I have a tail here. I would try and probably hide that one more time, but depending on the stretch, it might come undone. So you can kind of see that I have it hid there, a little harder to see. Okay, so there would be my example piece. They are going to get a little curled on the end, so just set it out. And you have your piece that you're working with. Now, you're going to know you have a back that's going to look like this. You can see I don't have any loops exposed or showing. And you can use and just dampen this and set a flat object on them, and they will likely flatten out for you. Okay? All right, so that's how you would create. Now let's look at our fair book and see what specifically we might need for entry at fair. Now I'm going to go ahead, and it is going to be under the Fiber Arts Knitting and Crochet section, which in our new fair book, it starts on page 29. And we are going to go ahead and look right at knitting. So on page 31, if you look, I'm going to go ahead and increase this just a little bit so you can see. You are going to enter this project under any level C225-003. Arm or finger knitted item. It can be a clothing item, which is going to be a scarf, or a home design restoration if you want to do like a bigger project like a blanket. So that is what that is going to be entered under. Now there is questions that are going to go under each of these. So if you look over here on the knitted section, you are going to want to type these questions out. What steps did you take as you work towards your goals? So basically, what were the steps of this project that you did? We will have that on the information sheet for you, so you can type those out. What were the most important things you learned? So you can answer that is the gauge, number of rows per inch, number of stitches per inch. So if we would take a look at this, that is looking and saying, okay, in here, if I take a 1 inch by 1 inch section, I am probably only getting 1 stitch tall and 2 stitches wide. Oops, excuse me, that was off. So if I took a 1 inch by 1 inch section, so about an inch by about an inch, I'm only getting 1 stitch tall and maybe 2 inches wide. Okay, so that is 2 stitches per inch. Okay, is how that is going to read for your gauge. Number of rows per inch, 1 row per inch, and then number of stitches per inches you get 2. Size of needles, finger knitted, arm knitted, loom, or machine knitted. In this case, we are finger knitting. Kind of yarn, so you're going to keep this. It's the Jubilee Fun Fingers loop yarn, and in this case, the yarn weight and fiber content. So it is 100 grams. It is a size 7, which is a jumbo yarn. Okay. And fiber content in this case is it's 100% polyester. Okay. So the yarn itself is in 100 grams is its weight, but when we're looking at yarn weight, so we get 7.6 yards, but for the yarn weight, it's going to be based on a number on the back. So you're going to look for an icon that looks like a ball of yarn. That number on the band is what the weight is. You can go all the way from 1, which is a very fine weight, to a number 7, which is a jumbo. Okay, this is a jumbo, and the fiber content is 100% polyester. They're usually going to be pretty close to each other on that on your label. And then copy of the directions, we're going to provide that for you on your information sheet. So the directions will be there. Names of stitch used, sorry I skipped that question. It's just a finger knit. So, all right, that is pretty much all that we have for information. We talked about what you get in your kit. We talked about and showed you the steps of how to create your project. And we also looked in this year's fair book on what you would need to do to enter. This is an item that would be entered the Friday before fair during clothing day. If you have any other questions, you can stop by the office or contact us and we'll help you finish out your project. Thanks for watching. We hope you have a great time.